Good morning and happy Independence Day, happy Republic Day. I'm Leroy Du welcoming you to Sunrise this wet Saturday morning.
Good morning. My name is Ayo Makinde. It's Independence Day. Ishe Oluwa.
Kole baje o.
Nigeria Ishe Oluwa ni. Kole baje o.
Well, he's in that mood this morning. He is in that mood. Yeah, dance on, boy, dance on. You know, 62 years on, what hope for Nigeria?
The only thing
I'm glad you're dancing.
The final line of pledge, so help me God.
Benny.
What does that say? It says each individual has a role to play in the Project Nigeria.
Yes.
So help me God also means to me that God has assigned me a role to play. So if I am not playing it, is it because God is not helping me or because I'm not receiving the help? So, but in it all, it just says to me that God is in the equation of Nigeria, and that is why we have that final line in the pledge. So yeah.
Yes. Coming to work this morning, I had some young friends with me in the car, and they were saying, if there was something that would give them the belief that yes, Nigeria is going to be better, then they would hang on to that. Because I had asked them, I said, so why are you still in this country, both of you? Why have you not jackpot like all your mates are jackpotting? And they said, well, to be honest, they can't really answer that question because if they had a chance, they would jackpot themselves. Because there isn't anything that gives them the hope that Nigeria is going to be better in the near future.
Yeah, which is why every time the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria would speak, I am looking for something
to hold on
to. Some inspiration, some message of hope from the number one citizen, like the father in the house.
Yeah.
You know, the reason many marriages don't work is not because they don't love each other or anything, it's because they don't have a common ethos. That, okay, we are married, yes. Some people just want to get married for the sake of getting married. The same thing, we just want to get the whites out. We just wanted independence. So what are we going to do after the independence? Let them go first.
That's the question.
Let them go first.
Okay, we're still let them go first. We're still let them go in now.
It's the same thing we're still doing now.
Yeah.
We want to change a leader. Okay, and you see, for me, the word leader connotes something. It connotes to me that there is a following. It also connotes to me that there is a direction we're going. So that's what I expect the presidential speech to speak to. It's not, what's the word now? Democracy Day can be for all the things that you have done. But the independence Day, in my opinion, and so I will not even blame the president, I will lay it at the foot of the speech writers. Who designed what the president would say? I mean,
give us some hope after 62 years.
Let's there be someone who is saying, look, this is where we are now. This is where we are coming from.
Go.
Now, this is where we want to go. This is what our education should be doing. This is what our health should be doing. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know I'm not the president, so maybe there is a law that says, okay, these are the things that the president must say. I don't know.
And 62 years on, there's so much that we have to do. I had cause to go to Central Lagos on Tuesday, Ayo. And like they say, I just tire. Tinubu Square, Broad Street. And I had taken a lady with me who was going to Central Lagos for the first time. She was from she's from Akwa Ibom State. She'd heard Broad Street before. So when I told her, I said, this is Broad Street. She looked at it and it was, with disbelief. But then say na here na all the banks and all the business things in Nigeria. Say na here then they. I said yes, they were here, But maybe now that they've gone is the reason why this place is like this. But Central Lagos, oh my God, it was so disorganized, so dirty, and we keep talking about Wole Wole here. Lagos State, we think it's time you brought Wole Wole's back. The whole place was so, and it had rained, and you know how it is when it has just rained in Lagos. It just shows up all the filth and all the lack of drainage. The whole thing is there, you know? Oh, and 54 billion naira IGR. I didn't see any evidence of it.
The state has its functions, its job cut out for it. The local government system has its job lined out in the full schedule of the Constitution of the Federal Republic.
Yeah, but who allows the local government to work?
I'm coming there. Just recently, the Constitution Review, train passed through the Lagos State House of Assembly. And guess what? The Lagos State House of Assembly did not pass the autonomy bill for the local government system.
Yeah. But with so much money, why do they need the local government allocation?
There's one or two other states that have not done that. I'm not sure whether it's Ekiti, one other state in the southwest. A number of states in the polity have already passed the bill. I'm hoping we should just get to that 24 number so that local governments can have autonomy and then the federal government can pay straight into their account. Then we will now see whose mother will not do the things that they are supposed to do at the local government level. But then this thing that you are talking about will not happen.
But if you ask me, Lagos State should have been the first to actually sign on to that because they're making so much money on their own anyway.
I don't even think it's a function of the money. Is it the money problem or the power problem?
Both, because they say that the local government funds are in the pockets of the governor.
In every state in Nigeria, well, except those who have decided, you know what, we're going to just give you your autonomy. I think Kaduna State has done that. I'm not sure. I think Rivers State has also done that. But so that is why you've noticed what you noticed. Back in the 70s, it was not like that. Back in the 80s, it was not like that. So sometimes it's just
shops in every single corner, every little space available.
You know what I would have even loved? If you want to keep the money of the local government, fine. But please, can we rotate the state government's seat of government to the various parts of the state? You want to stay in your state, in Ibadan. Okay, Ibadan is the capital city, fine. But there is no development in Ubomosho. Can we just find one, like maybe 100 acres or something, just build another state government, whatever there, okay? Move there for like 3 to 6 years, have the state capital there,
yes,
and then develop that place. Then move to Iseyin. Maybe then
we will have some development.
Because if you don't want to, replicate development as you have it in the capital city, then decentralize government. Let the local government systems work.
Which capital city? Okay, Ikeja is the capital of Lagos, isn't it?
Exactly. So even the Ikeja
is Ikeja developed?
Well, Ikeja is developed. I can't say the same for the inner roads.
Okay.
So that's why you saw what you saw. Let's just have the local government systems working actively, for God's sake.
Okay. I don't know if you read the story about the delegates that went to the United Nations and that Nigeria went with a delegation of about 100.
Are you sure it's not fake news?
Well, we read it in the newspapers.
And
I was thinking, we're shouting that we don't have money, and yet we carry 100 people.
No, that's protocol. That's protocol. You said something before we came on air about the
there's
convoy.
No protocol in other countries who had smaller delegations.
No, there's
their own protocol is different.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You talked about the U.S. president's convoy. That you said that you heard it's more expensive for him to travel by road than it is to travel by air. I thought it was the other way around. But hey, that's what they have. I mean, from what we have heard so far.
Mind you, there are 2 Air Force Ones.
2 Air Force Ones, 2 beasts.
2 beasts,
and
yes.
Each one of them cost... Okay?
You don't want to start mentioning how much, I beg.
I don't want to. So
because Traveling with the beasts is a convoy of about, I think, 20 cars, and each of them has a function.
And not just the vehicles now. There is going to be personnel in each of them. So would they not be up to 100?
Then the technology, Nko.
So, and would they not be up to 100? No, look, what US is to the world is what Nigeria is to Africa. So come on.
Well, we've got to show it.
We're showing it.
Like one Liberian made a video that I saw on social media in the course of the week. Say, Nigeria will now be forming, I am big brother of Africa.
Yes.
I am giant of Africa.
Yes.
There's no light in your capital city, Abuja, and he shows us a picture of Abuja. Look at your roads, filthy. Your roads are not even tarred. Then you are forming giant of Africa. Which kind of giant of Africa are you?
That is hate speech. That is hate speech right there. Nigeria is, look, three songs.
But in all of it, there was nothing that the guy said that was a lie. It made me feel ashamed. So, I hate to admit it. I really hate to admit this. But you are telling the truth.
Okay. Alero.
Our grid has crashed 8 times this year.
Now, one of the things that all of these are true. But however, is it all gloom?
It's not all gloom. It's not all gloom.
However, unfortunately, who is telling the glory part? Who is telling the boom part? No one is telling the boom part. I understand that we have challenges. The president admitted so much in his speech this morning, in the Independence Day speech. And said, look, we've gone quite some distance, but we are not where we want to be. Every president that I have had the privilege of listening to has said exactly the same thing. The question that you raised earlier is, we need to have a direction where we are going as a nation. What's the Nigerian ethos? We have a vision.
We talk about that almost every Saturday.
Let's keep talking about it. Maybe the next president
and
the next governors
will do something about it. Coming here this morning, I heard about the third mainland bridge, and I thought, yeah, and I actually smiled. And I said, yeah, the day that bridge was commissioned was a good day for Nigeria.
It was 92.
90.
Oh, it was 1990?
It was 1990, yes.
Commissioned?
On Babangida's birthday, actually. And it was open for a few hours during the day to start with, because it wasn't really fully completed. It actually put a smile on my face, and I thought, is this not supposed to be the longest bridge in Africa?
At the time?
At the time, yes, at the time. But, And I thought, yeah, Nigeria, that put us on the map. When are we going to do more things that will put us on the map?
It takes vision. And it takes us all agreeing that Nigeria is bigger than my bank account. Nigeria is bigger than my bank balance. We have stuff in this country. Part of the things that the president mentioned this morning is that the entertainment industry is part of the things that has put us on the map.
Our exports. Well done, guys. We appreciate you all. I'm
really grateful to God for that. I'm really happy that at least government would admit that much.
That's right.
So what these young men and women are doing is counting for something.
Yes.
However, every one of us need to agree that, look, wherever you go, on my way this morning, for some strange reason, I decided to listen to this old song by Tosin Martins, Made in Nigeria. It's a beautiful song telling, look, if we join hands, the things that are not enough are going to be surplus. As you were talking earlier, I remember 2 songs. One by Chief Commander Ebenezer Obey, when the Golden Eaglets won that World Cup. He said, this Nigeria is going to be sweet again. Yeah. And he talked about, the things that they did. I also remember Venom Arioga's song, Nigeria will survive.
Yeah.
No, can we now have Nigeria don't survive? Because this
soon
that go survive sounds soon. Like we will never get out of this.
We will get there. We'll get there. There's no doubt about it. Nothing is static.
Yeah.
Things move. It's just that sometimes you move in the wrong direction.
Oh.
Yes, and it's unfortunate. The dollar is now 732 naira. I mean, that for me is unacceptable. I don't know about everybody else, from a position of being 68 kobo or something.
To the dollar?
Yes. $1 was,
$1, Nigeria's currency was even stronger than the pounds.
And here we are.
But clearly we know what to do, and we have to do the things that we need to do.
So those of you who are putting yourselves forward to be in positions of leadership in 2023, you have your work cut out. And remember, you are all applying for a job. So the office of the citizen, please rise up to your job. You've got your job cut out in picking the employee that you want to serve, the employees you want to serve you for the next 4 years.
And you better know that the office of the citizen is the employer.
Benio.
Recognize that.
You are the ones employing these people, even though sometimes they behave like
overlords.
they are the ones who are in charge, and they're lording it over you and pushing you into the gutter because they want to go through, with their sirens. I remember Professor Soludo, the first time he came out and wanted to be governor, and I said, but you are offering to serve. You keep harping on the word serve, serve. But excuse me, ex-governor of Central Bank, when you all are on the roads with your sirens, we all have to jump into the gutter to let you through. And he said, I will never be that kind of governor. But he's all the way in Anambra State, so I don't know. I should find somebody who lives in Anambra who will tell us.
We have an email address, so let the Anamblians tell us what that is.
If he's sending you into the gutter because he wants to go through, because he had promised not to do that. Right. Today's Independence Day. Naturally, that's where we're going to start the program from. Nigeria at 62. What to hope for?
Very, very important
question.
Is there
hope?
Yeah. So if we want Nigeria to go somewhere, what are we hoping for? It's the vision. Next one will be the transformational development of Nigeria. We hear transformational leader. Let's have transformational development, that conversation as well.
And then on our lifestyle segment today, we'll be looking at stress and stressors. Ooh, very important.
I hear there is good stress. Yes, we'll hear more of it.
Okay, good stress is stress. There cannot be good stress, because stress itself is negative, if you ask me.
Listen to it all. And of course, we'll close with the home stretch, the artist of the week. Who is a...
He is a he.
It is a he.
He is a he.
Oh, he.
He is a he.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That's the lineup for this morning.
We'll see you shortly after you've grabbed your... Lovely song right there. That song will inspire one. Those young people that say that they wish they had something they could hold on to that would give them hope. They should listen to that song, but it's one thing to sing, and it's another thing for the hope to actually exist, so that they actually have something to hold on to that will keep them here, believing that in the near future, Nigeria is going to begin to go around the bend, and we'll start achieving all the things that we know that we can achieve in spite of our diversity. So Nigeria is 62, the anniversary of the lowering of the Union Jack, the symbol of colonialism, on October 1, 1960. But today, many wonder if there's anything to celebrate. It is well known that for close to 7 months now, public universities have been on strike as a result of the, elongated palaver between ASU and the government. Revenue has dwindled. Security is a major concern for many. Finances are dwindling. Many young men and women are saying bye-bye to Nigeria, and they're going to look for their fortunes elsewhere. But still, Nigerians hold on to hope. What are you hoping for? That is the question we'll be talking about this morning. And our guests are Dr. John Ekundayo, Leadership Development Consultant, Good morning.
Good morning.
As well as Mr. Babashola Owaje, who's a politician. Good morning.
Good morning.
We expect a social commentator, Biodun Showumi, to join us in the course of this segment. Dr. Kundayo, we are 62 today. You haven't lost hope, have you?
I have not. I'm just an incurable optimist.
So, what exactly are you hoping to see in the near future? Does 2023 hold any kind of, will there be any direction for us after the elections?
Well, two things, Auntie Alero. In the future, and then 2023. Let me talk about future first.
Two different things.
Yes. You see, because when you talk about future, to me as a leadership researcher, not just analyst, there are some things that have to happen or have happened before you are talking about something in the nearest future, which is 2023. Well, let me talk about the future first. And then know that there are two things basically. Number one is that it is time to learn, unlearn, and relearn leadership. Our leaders have not gotten some things right. Our forefathers meant well. The forefathers, the Sadana, Amadu Bello, Shivoba Femiolo, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Malam Aminu Kano, and the rest of them, they meant well. They were just starting. So whatever their frailties may be, we just, we celebrate them. They started well with us. Then the military interregnum came in, caution came in, and disrupted the democratic process that was going on. So in the nearest future, I'm looking forward to first the youth and the elites. These are the two people for me that I see, that can make a lot of difference. The youth, it is time for the youth to begin to ask questions, to begin to interface with leaders, interact, interrogate our leaders. Not just, anything they give you, and they are giving you peanuts now, and then you just settle with it. It is time to interface with them, to interrogate them. It is time so that what is it that they have for us in the future? And our leaders, I have to say this, they need to learn leadership. You see, because, I know part of this is something to be considered a transformational leadership. I was listening to that. You see, they need to learn about value-laden leadership. In leadership, we are taught about that. Who are servant leaders? Who are transformational leaders? Not just transactional leaders. Transactional leaders is, what is it for me there? And that's what many of them, we have them in the political landscape. So I'm looking forward to such a future. And for 2023, it's a lot in the distance, but we can talk about that one later.
We have a politician with us in the house, Mr. Babashola Owaje. Any hope? Where are your hopes?
Thank you very much. First of all, if I wasn't hopeful, I wouldn't have gone into politics. I think we can start from there. I want to learn, what he said. From what he said, I am an incurable optimist as well. The trend now is to find your way out of the country and settle somewhere else. I'm sure we've seen, the numerous exodus. There's nobody here that doesn't have someone that has not traveled this September.
Who has not jackpot.
That has not. I was almost going to say that. But beyond that, Nigeria remains our country first and foremost. It's the blood that flows within us, regardless of wherever we go to, regardless of whatever we are going through now. I mean, immediately we started, you reeled out all of the problems we've been having, right? Some of them. It's the list is endless. But one thing we can all agree on is that we have that spirit whereby we drive through all of these problems and still remain as one country. I believe that Nigeria would not break up. I believe that for another 60 years we'll be together. I believe that very soon, and when I mean very soon, I have so much faith in the coming elections. We're not talking candidacy now, but we're talking about the atmosphere that the 2023 elections will bring in. It's almost difficult for anybody to not be aware of what we're about to, encounter, in the next phase of the political space in this country. So, I mean, the hope is there, and I'm really, really believing that we're going to turn the corner.
Mr. Waje,
yes,
maybe I should apologize to you before asking you this question. You began by saying that if you did not have any hope, you wouldn't go into politics.
Yes.
But the general belief in Nigeria now is that if all else fails, go into politics. You're going there in the hope that you will make money for yourself. That's the general belief.
Okay.
Politics is just to go and make money. Because you become a member of the House of Representatives, for instance, you're going home with a salary of about approximately 14 million a month.
Yeah, the cost of governance is an issue, right? But let me add at this moment that I'm a business manager. I manage a pension loan platform. We're in 27 states or thereabouts in the country. I strongly believe that money is not the motivating factor. I strongly believe
for me. Okay.
I strongly believe that money is not the motivating factor. I have been doing this for the past 7 years. We have offices all around the country. I interface with pensioners on a daily basis, and these people are the bridge, where we can use to look back and see where we're coming from. They had good stories to tell. They always have good stories to tell. So what happened? And that was one of the reasons why I went into, I came into politics. I also studied political science, by the way, in the university. So,
unfortunately, there's a difference between political science and politics in Nigeria.
I mean,
let me ask Dr. Kunayo. Often when we have these conversations with you, always point to the followership. And do you think in the entire spectrum of this conversation, do you think the followership is ignored or not factored into the paradigm?
Well, in the democratic dispensation in which we are, I would still call Nigerian experience a nascent democracy. We are evolving, we are emerging, we are developing. Well, we are 62, but it has not been political dispensation all throughout. So I talk about the military incursion the other time.
No, it's not been democratic, but there has been politics, because there has to be, so long as you're in government, you are in some form of
yeah, I'm building up an argument,
okay.
Ayo. And what I want to say is that it's not just that followers are ignored, but the followers have been like Kadasika, they've been laid back, especially the elites among the followers.
What do you think informed that?
Well, basically because some people think politics is dirty. Oh, politics. I remember when I was going to the university, I was told all manner of things. When you get there, don't be part of student unionism. Don't be part of this. So people still have the mentality that, okay, politics is dirty. I don't want to touch politics. I just want to do my business. Not knowing that their own business will even be regulated by political actors.
Is it something that has to do with is it something cultural? Do you think it's something that's a product of our culture as a people, just saying yes to what the KBAC says?
Not really that, Ayo. I think in the First Republic, I think in the First Republic, some of our elderly people, like my father, for instance, was actually lured to just support a political party in that time, 1960, 64, 65. I was a little baby that time. And then because he was told as a farmer, don't worry, this government, if you just, they will help you, farm input, this and that. And he was not a politician, but he just said, if that is the case.
So long as
and that was only the Akintola and Awolowo saga in the West, Wide West.
Yeah.
And my father's house was nearly burnt. He was not a carry card politician. So that mentality, he passed that to even we the children. If not few of us that after getting education, traveling abroad, we could see some things, we were able to come out of that mentality. So there are some followers, especially the elites, that are still in that kind of sinkhole, and it is difficult for them to get that. And some of these people have a lot of dependents, people that depends on them, people that listen to them. So you can see anytime we have cycle of election, now they are saying we have about 94 million voters or whatever, or 74 million voters. But at the end of the day, maybe 25 million or 30 million we vote.
Well, we've since been joined by Biodun Showumi, whom you introduced earlier, Alera. He's a social commentator. Thanks for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
I know that every time we talk about Nigeria, the pain in your heart, is palpable. But this morning we want to talk about something that we can hope for. Let's offer some hope to the Nigerian. Nigeria is 62. A 62-year-old still, should I say, crawling or not going at a pace one would expect. It is painful, I can understand, but speak a measure of hope to the people. In your opinion, is there something to hope for?
Yes, there is a lot to hope for in Nigeria. We can't give up. It's the only country we have. We have to look at how to get the country to work. We have made our own mistakes in the past, and when I say that, I'm saying it by referring to the ruling class in Nigeria. In the 60s, you realize that we had a model of political arrangement which led to massive development in different parts of the country. For instance, Nigeria has the first television station before France. Many people have forgotten that we used to have tram in Lagos. We have had signs of development and things, infrastructural development, and the economy was booming, up to a point that a former head of state openly boasted in 1973 that the problem that Nigeria had was not money, was how to spend it. So we came from a model we inherited from our forefathers, which brought in prosperity. There was regional development, competitive development, up to the point that if you take note of the fact that when UI was established, I think 1958 or 59? 48. UN and Nsukka came into being immediately after, and then we had ABU, from the north after Nsukka, when they saw the benefits. So that was very healthy regional competition within the country. But for reasons best known to the military, this was abrogated. Let me fast forward so that we understand what the problem is. We now tried to look at other models of development. While we're trying to, the military tried, to look at the Chinese model, only adopted one out of the two methods employed by the Chinese. The first one is a mass-based approach to economic development, whereby everybody will be stakeholders in their own economy. The poorer areas will also be assisted through regional integration. We chose to embrace the second one, which is on poverty alleviation alone. We were trying to alleviate poverty without targeting development assistance, to the regions where there are less opportunity or they are geographically, less endowed. And therefore, we managed to create a wider gulf, within the country between regions that have and the regions that are less endowed. The same thing translated to the population in those parts of the country. To the extent that we again now saw a resurgence of ethnic politics and religious issues, creeping into the choice of political leaders in a way that it didn't happen. Not because the political parties, when we have the confederal arrangement, were not ethno-based. They were actually ethno-based. There is no way everybody identified them AG, with the western part of Nigeria, same thing, NCNC and, other political parties and all that. But the fact that everybody became stakeholder, development was moving on, there was huge employment opportunities up to the point that we are importing people from India, expatriates, to come and work in our own economy. The impact of religion and ethnicity, did not distort our development, including the choice of political leaders. But if you fast track it to now, what do we have? The situation currently today is that when we tried to alleviate poverty using the military model without embracing a mass-based approach to economic development and create economic convergence, in the country, which the Chinese did, and they were able to take 800 million people out of extreme poverty. What we did actually contributed more to poverty because the elites, saw it as an opportunity also to aggrandize, wealth, without solving the major problem the country is faced. Now, fast track to today, we are faced with a situation where two major determinants. It's not the manifesto of the political parties, which is really very troubling and so worrisome. Two major issues have reoccurred, have reared their ugly head. Ethnic politics and religion. And Nigerians are being encouraged by the elites, including leaders of political parties, to focus on religion, not on capacity and experience of those political actors. In the same way, we have had people, let me actually mention an example. In the case of APC, the Kashim Shettima religious dimension to it was only meant for political purposes, to dwindle the impact of their votes, And the same thing Atiku, when you have people now saying Atiku can't stick to agreement, he can't be trusted. What is that all about? Is it about Atiku's capacity? Have you analyzed Atiku's manifesto? We have not done so. Then how did you come to that conclusion? In the same way, Rabi Kwankwanzo and Peter Obi are being, promoted as regional champions without anybody actually looking at the agenda.
Okay, so all of these, there's still lots.
Let me talk about the hope. There's hope.
Okay.
The moment we need to restructure this country, the moment we restructure this country, in a way that the system will throw up a leadership that will adopt a mass-based approach to our problem, while also working on rural integration, real rural integration into our economy, so that everybody becomes stakeholders. You'll be able to stem the migration from rural areas down to the urban areas. You'll be able to stem people moving from one part of the country to another part of the country, distorting their own economic blueprints, bringing us to nowhere.
But the question you want to ask around that, Mr. Shomi, is they have governors in their states. Why that would happen would be because, for whatever reason, maybe the governors didn't inspire enough hope for them to stay back home. But we'll come back to that. Well, Mr. Uwaje, young Nigerians have literally, can I use the word taken over, interests. I say this often, that what the young people of the 60s, 50s into the 60s that championed the independence had, the advantage they had over their parents was education, even though it was given by the same parents. Today, I posit that the advantage the young people have is technology, even though we can say it's their parents that created the same technology. Now, do you see a way in which the young people, because, you would know, young people who have embraced technology are taking tremendous advantage of the opportunities for themselves, economic empowerment for themselves, doing quite well for themselves and all of that. In what way do you see young people really galvanizing to use this technology to the advantage of Nigeria as an individual polity of people, as opposed to just personal selves?
Okay, so one of the advantages we have in the world today is globalization. You can sit in your house and portray and create an image, for the world to see. young people, a lot of us nowadays are breaking barriers. You know, if you look at the music industry, for example, I can say we're already there in terms of, you know, global dominance. You know, the chart is there for us to see and all. So what we have various platforms where we portray a lot of our productivity, a lot of our goodwill here in Nigeria, based on some certain compartments. For example, music, the entertainment industry, really. What we can really do, I mean, we're not there yet, because when you go around, you know, most of these media spaces, most of the airwaves, you notice that young people don't really talk about, you know, fixing Nigeria, taking politics to the next level.
What's the gap there? What do you think is responsible for that?
Orientation. The people that are speaking now have to speak more. Those of us that are, you know, trying to make people see that, okay, this thing is possible. It may sound cliche, but it's actually our time. You know, there's the superior knowledge through technology that we have now, that we are meant to infuse into all of this. But the orientation is not there yet.
Is there a leader? Is that in your opinion a leadership gap or direction?
Yes, leadership gap, but there is also the wave. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a leadership point of view. I don't know how we can call it a national awakening. That's why I'm very optimistic about us going into 2023, because we can see it, but we're not there yet. I know if you go on social media now, there's a lot of discourse, debates about, you know, presidential candidates, and, you know, we're getting there. But we now we need to start having discussions based on, you know, who is your senator in your district? Do you even know your district? Who is your House of Assembly member? Who's representing you in your constituency? Are you aware that you are in constituency 1 or constituency 2? Do you even know, you know, the people running on that level?
You know your postal code.
So that is where I would be convinced that we've started that discussion, right? As much as possible, when people start talking about presidential candidates and, you know, whatnot, I mean, it's good, it's okay, but we need to come home. What is in your area? Do you even know what's going on in your area? Because you can't keep blaming the president. And
you know your councillor.
Do you even know your councillor?
your local
and that is where the problem is. Because when you start to see the caliber of people that are being put into this, I'll call them next door governance, like your neighborhood governance. When you start seeing the caliber of people there, it should make you upset. You know that, okay, I think it's time I need to step in, because it's actually my immediate environment that has the issue.
And
not
this guy
Nigeria.
does not qualify.
Yes.
Or this woman does not
So we're
qualify.
looking at macro snapshots where we have, when in truth, we're meant to be talking about the micro snapshots, you know, on this discourse. So when we get there, you know, that's when I can say we've had that orientation and, you know, we have that national awakening.
Mr. Owaji, I'd like to stay with you because to start with, you said, this is our time. And something just clicked in my brain. Yeah, this is your time. But to get presidential forms for some party was 100 million. And to get for another party was 50 million. Where will this young man, whose time you say it is, find 50 million to go collect form alone? So if he gets the nomination, he still has a lot of other expenses coming, the campaign. Now we hear billboards are what, 10 million naira a toss? Where is he going to find that kind of money to actualize this time that you say it is?
Okay, you mentioned the presidency. If I can't afford, you know, the form for the presidency, maybe I should just take it a notch lower. You know, Rome was not built in a day. Politics in this country is very expensive. You know, I can tell that. I can confess that firsthand. You know, it's not
from your experience.
From my experience, it's not what it's
As they say,
saying.
it's not beans.
It's not beans at all. You know, but we can start from somewhere. You know, I would rather have an organic growth whereby I understand the rudiments of governance right from the grassroots. All right, I am going for House of Assembly. I'm a candidate of PDP for the House of Assembly. I would rather start from there, you know. It is my hope, you know, and I believe that in the future, the cost of doing politics in this country would reduce. It's possible. What we need is leadership reorientation. Daddy mentioned something about unlearning, relearning, you know, some of these values that we've had over time. Why would presidential fund be 100 million when I want to offer myself a service?
It's because you know what you're going to get. But I'll come to you, Dr. Kuda, but let me stay with Mr. Show-me for a bit. He spoke about something that you also hinted at, that we should drill down governance. I want to talk about the political awareness on that ladder, that lower echelon of society, if I can use that term. In your opinion, to offer that catchment, hope, we have to give them something they don't have. We have to give them something that you said they lost over time. How do we get them interested? Or should I say, for want of a better word this time, angry enough to decide to take their destiny into their hands? Because it would seem like it's been taken away from them for too long. So how do we reawaken the people in the rural areas, including those in the hinterlands, in the farmlands, in the countryside of the country, to be aware, interested, and galvanize themselves with enough political awareness and education to take decisions that can give their own children hope?
Yes, I think I agree with him that we need to focus, on the micro level rather than looking at the overall macro economy. One thing we should not forget is this. The structure we have in the country currently today is such that if you don't restructure it or replace it, it's been designed in a way that even the young people themselves will not be able to make a major impact. Let me give you a very good example. For instance, setting up a political party. You can set up a young man's political party or call it anything with the goal to attract a lot of youths. The first problem you face is your registration with INEC, and then you now have to set up offices in different parts of the federation. We have disoriented our people. We've, in fact, created a major problem for ourselves. I'm sure my political friend would bear me a witness. It is difficult to go and campaign without somebody expecting you to drop something. Even the very poor people you are trying to rescue with your home program. Nobody talks about the manifesto, nobody talks about the agenda, and it's about money. We have a situation where one person went to campaign in a constituency and was telling them what he can do, with the constituency allowance. Look, you people form yourself into a cooperative, and then at least cover your drainage. I will award it to you. Whoever will do that job, will make profit. So you share the profit. They turn around, they were calling him Honorable Alankara. They were deriding him because they just don't see what is in it. They want an immediate gain. So we have created a huge problem for ourselves through the presidential system of government which we have currently. It is so expensive for anybody to, if you don't have between 5 and 50 million, forget about contesting for chairman of a local government in Nigeria today. 25 to 50 million. Forget about it. You don't stand the chance.
Of which office is this?
Chairman of a local government.
The local government that is not autonomous?
Yes. Forget about, you don't even stand the chance. If you go through the system, you know how much you part with before you even get the party nomination, particularly with the major leading political party. So when you now talk about the rural areas, forget about it. They don't even stand the chance. Those who are representing people in the rural areas are from the cities. Yeah. They do not have the first-hand experience of what they're going through.
So let's talk about the solution, Mr. Showunmi. How do we reverse that?
There's hope. There's hope in the sense that we know what the problem is. In the first instance, we know something cannot stand on nothing. This structure that we have currently, since the military brought in these quasi-federalism, or some people call it unitary system of government, we really need to go back and change that. If you don't change that so that everybody can develop in line with their own pace, you will continue to create a problem, in the sense that one area would hold down the other area, in order to develop. The example of that is when you look at what we've done with the educational system. In 1974, Jubril Aminu was the executive secretary of Nigerian University Commission. He came out with a paper titled, I still have the paper, Educational Imbalance in Nigeria, and where he was advocating for nomadic education. What they simply did when he became the Minister for Education in 1986 was to transfer the money for research in our universities to fund nomadic education. Consequently, we destroyed the university system, while at the same time nomadic education failed to fly. If you look at how much Jonathan's regime invested in nomadic education, where are we today? So instead of creating, bridging the gap between one region and the other through promoting development, what we are doing is holding down development in other areas in order to promote another region. So and that is not achieving the goal. Okay. Now, lastly, we need to take away the issue of ethnicity and religion.
But someone will have to play the lead in showing us Nigeria as opposed to my tribe. Let me come to you, Mr. Dr. Kundayo. Nigerianizing Nigeria. Is that a thing?
Nigerianizing, well, you can form it.
Because
I've been the dictionary.
Because talking about all these tribes, religion, ethnicity, and all those things, it has not gotten us anywhere. And historically, it will not get us anywhere. That is why both the first national anthem and the second national anthem talked about our diversity being the strength of our unity. How do we get there?
Mr. Waji struck a chord. And he said, okay, why looking so much at the top if I can't reach there? Let me start where I can reach. And that's, to me, is a solution. And I come back to followership. It is time, and it is high time, we went back to our roots. The polling units. I was in my home state, Ekiti State, June 18th to vote. I went with my wife. We voted in my polling unit. And it made a difference. Because there was somebody in that polling unit that was contesting House of Rep in another political party. I don't want to mention party now. But then the thing is, because I voted, I learned a lesson that day. You see, and my wife came with me. When the vote was counted, despite all the money that I spent, we tie that polling unit. We tie. Now, if my wife had not, if I've not mobilized my wife, so these are things people will say votes are not counted. With the electoral act, it's counting. Now, to you youths, it is time. Tell them. Tell your other people. You see, yes. This thing pay me. I'm 61. I'm 61 now. I'm a grandfather. To the glory of God, I have 2 sons abroad. That may not even come. That may not even come. No, they have come. Not just now. Well, part of them are citizens there. My grandsons are citizens. You see, they may not even have hope of coming to Nigeria again. Maybe to come and reside. They are visiting, they are coming. You see, but youths, you have this chance. You are saying it's your time. And I agree with you. It's your time. Not really 2023 you will make that impact. I don't see it. Because you have not really organized yourself. You have not really. It's time to organize yourself. I'm not even talking about party now. You see, Mr. Ashumi was talking about, it's not easy to organize a party. Fine. That's what is called political alliance. Come together. Those of you with similar idea like this, and go to your root, go to your ward, go to your polling units. Whether YPP, APC, PDP, a Labour Party, join. Those of you are graduates, instead of riding Okada and all these things around about, or participating in Yahoo, Yahoo, and Yahoo Plus and whatever, go there, meet with them, and you said something, which I've also seen, because I went with them. When you get to your ward level, you see the people, the ward chairmen, the ward secretaries, you will shake your head. The caliber of people there, their educational background, their pedigree. And then we begin to speak grammar in the cities. And our villages, our hometowns are lagging. And we are talking about development. That's where it starts from. So that you begin to influence who become your councillor, who become your chairman, who become your House of Assembly member. And the politicians will know these people have come. It's either they negotiate with you. We will get there. So you youth will get there small, step by step. It's not in a day. And I love your angle of thinking, your perspective. You see, because by the time they see you coming together, they are afraid. And one thing they will do is they will negotiate with you. I'm a followership scholar. They will negotiate with you. And in negotiating, you will tell them, we want 4 commissioners. We want so and so. Okay, we'll give you. But will you do this or? And you are coming to the system. Because if you don't come into the system, you cannot change the system.
Sure. Mr. Showman,
that's where we stop.
Suppose we found, this is just hypothesis, suppose we found an Ngozi Waziri, who is an atheist, and he has a huge followership.
Wait a minute. This is really diverse.
Yes, we're talking religion and ethnicity. Mm-hmm. He is Ngozi Waziri. He
is Ngozi Waziri.
Okay. And he's an atheist. And he has a huge followership because he's a young, energetic man. What happens to religion? What happens to ethnicity? This one is neither Yoruba, nor Igbo, nor Hausa.
No Christian.
Neither Muslim nor Christian. No Christian. He believes in some god in his bedroom. What happens?
Well, to understand what would happen to him, you need to look at our own traditional religion institution. Christianity and Islam came in, they were alien to us.
Yes.
And then our own traditional religion allowed for the flourishing of ideas and beliefs, spiritual beliefs. And that is how they managed to come in. But today, nobody is even thinking about traditional religion. You have Christian pilgrimage board, Muslim pilgrimage board. What about traditional religion?
Oh.
You have Christmas, you have Ileya, or what do they, the Muslim thing. What about Isheshe Day for tradition? That is our own. So forget even about these atheists, because they don't stand a chance. When the debates occur, if you look at the way we're going about the debates on religion currently, you realize that it's the Christians, pitching tent against the Muslims, yes, or the Muslims against the Christian. The vast majority of our people, you will be shocked, are either traditional believers or they believe in Christianity and Islam with traditional religion. And nobody is actually talking about that. So we need to downplay the role of religion. It should be about capacity, your experience,
ideas,
your proven track record. Where is your agenda, your manifesto? How would it impact on the people? Rather than talking about this one is Muslim. Where would it lead us? If you go into history, since when we've started, we've always been having Christian, Muslim. Where has it led us till today? Till today, is that religion and ethnicity are the bane of our development. It's not even corruption. The whole of New York was built on corruption. In Israel, 3 or 4 prime ministers have been jailed for corruption. Italy is one of the most gangsteristic economy in the whole world, when it comes to corruption. Go to Japan, there's corruption in Japan. Why is it that it has not stifled their development? It is because we mixed corruption with ethnicity and religion.
Well, here we are. We have about 5 minutes
winding down.
To begin to wind down. So let me come back to you, Dr. Kundayo. Speaking to solutions now. So this is where we are. This is where we find ourselves as a people. And you have talked about the need for the followership to do something. But then part of what you said earlier brought a question to my mind. The question of how the laws can encourage or strengthen the followership to do the needful for themselves and for the future. Do you think we have enough laws, rather? Are the laws tuned in the direction of the people, or in the direction of the people who they employed? Because while we were speaking earlier, while we were speaking earlier, we give some people jobs to do, and they use the instrumentality of the jobs we give them to skew things in a particular direction, in the direction of the people who will occupy that office. So once they get there, they tinker with things for themselves that will work against them when they leave office. So how do we reverse that trend?
Mr. Shuwi mentioned something, and that's about, looking back, in my column that will come out tomorrow, talking about this issue. I remember when I was leaving my hinterland, coming to the city of Ibadan as the capital of Western State then. And I remember, in the vehicle, the lush greenery of the atmosphere, the roads were tarred. In 1972, January, I still remember precisely. How many years now? Maybe about 50 years. Yeah, 50 years now. You see, the regions, coming back to what you said, sir. And I remember that time, we didn't have anything about all this idea, this electricity, something, disco, whatever. It used to be ECN, sir, if you can remember, sir. And the light, it's not that, when light will go off, you will know. And then within 30 minutes, 1 hour is back, water was running the tap in Ibadan city that time. And you see, because we have each region, like that, developing at the pace that needs to. We need to go back to restructuring. It is high time. And I'm happy that governors in the northern region could come together and say, it's time, we should have state police. We can see it now. Okay. We have been talking about that in the south, but it's like,
everyone is talking about it.
It's like
now.
what he said. He said one region should not hold down another region. So it's time for us. Restructuring. It should be key. The youth, you should be up, that's part of the thing.
I'll come to the youth now.
Anybody that doesn't have that on the agenda.
What will you be saying to young people as well now in terms of what to do going forward? Please, let's look beyond 2023 for God's sake.
Well, the message is get involved. When I joined PDP, a man told me something. He said a lot of people say that this party is bad, that party is bad. But if you have a particular ideology, why can't you influence about 5,000 of you with the same ideology and join that political party that is bad?
Things will change.
Things will change.
Okay.
So what we need to do going forward from the 1st of October 2022 is to get involved.
Sashomi.
Yes, what we need to do, in my view, is one, young people need to embrace politics. They need to be fully involved, but they must reject the idea of ethnic or religious politics. They cannot be the determinant factors, in elections. And if we allow that to happen, unfortunately, we're not going to make any progress.
Thank you.
Hope 2023. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. John Ekundayo, Leadership Development Consultant, Mr. Biodun Shomi, a social commentator, and Mr. Babashola Owuaje, who is a politician. He's a young man, but he's in politics, and he has enjoined you, young people, to get involved. And to buttress that, I will tell you something that the late Mr. Nosode told me when he said he wanted to be the president of Nigeria. I actually left my house in Ikeja and drove to his house because he was my pastor at the time. And I said, how can you get involved in this dirty game? And he said to me, have you seen anybody who ever wanted to clean a house and was able to clean it by standing outside? To clean a house, you have to enter the house.
I love that.
Let's drill it down.
So that is what I would say to young people.
Clean the
today.
plates. Your
To
hands
clean
have
up
to be
anything, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to be in it to be able to clean it.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Once again, happy Independence Day. We'll be right back with another interesting conversation. Please stay with us.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Well, There are those who will be wondering how come, they can't, well, maybe some people have told you that they can't hear or see sunrise anymore, and they want to continue to follow the conversation because on the other platform, we are already on the platform. So here is what you can tell them to do. Channels Television has 2 live streams. One is called Channels Television Live. Then there's another one called Channels Television Live Stream. We are right now on, the station as you're seeing us, and on Channels Television Live Stream on YouTube. So you can send that word out. And for those who would rather, watch sunrise. And of course, we are all on your terrestrial stations as well, right this very moment. So, questions around leadership. And hey, that's what leadership does, right? I mean, you always provide solutions, 2 options for people. You want to watch the platform on Channels Television, you can watch the platform. You want to watch Channels Television Sunrise, you can watch Channels Television Sunrise. So we are not a mono-economic.
Choices.
We're not a mono-economy. We don't only produce oil. We produce other things as well. Anyway, questions around leadership. Nigeria's pace of economic development and political and social stability have been with us since independence, for a very long time. Our journey towards nationhood, many say, haven't even started. So the challenge principally is that the gap between the ideals, ideas, and theories of leadership and its practice and application in the context of the Nigerian project continues to widen. So our best organized conversations, dialogues, and platforms on the subject have remained unsuccessful in initiating and or catalyzing change and reforms to narrow the gap. There are those who believe that Nigeria is in a difficult place today, an extremely difficult place, with grave insecurity, macroeconomic instability, and as you also heard in our previous conversation, microeconomic challenges as well, stagnation, stagflation, all kinds of things.
Unemployment, poverty.
The numbers are just...
Like the other showman said, the list is endless.
Exactly. So who are we looking for in 2023? Or should I also ask, what are we looking for? Earlier, we talked about what to hope for. Now we want to talk about transformational development. We also heard earlier someone talk about servant leadership, all kinds of transformational leaders. Mm-hmm. I also learned another one just recently, situational leadership, the one that can adapt into any shape or form just to solve a problem and move on. Let's have a conversation.
The amoeba.
Exactly, because, in a family, problems evolve. Even if you're not a financial expert, you have to solve financial problems at home and all of that. So we have 2 gentlemen joining us this morning. Abiodun Bamidele is a development expert. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy Independence Day.
Wish you the same. And joining us all the way from the United States is Dr. Toye Shobande, who is an international author and strategic leadership expert. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Shobande. You kindly unmute yourself so we can hear you, but we know you are there. So let's begin with you, Mr. Bamidele. This is where we are. Talking about transformational development for Nigeria. Earlier, we spoke about the kind and level and evolution of development that we've had over the years in the First Republic, the regions having complementary development in each region, healthy competition among them. But this is where we are now. We're quote-unquote central government with 36 states that have to look up. Where do we go from here?
I would like to start by saying that sometimes you are so overwhelmed with the state in which Nigeria is, and you are tempted to think that our situation is hopeless and there's no way out. But the truth of the matter is that when you look at history and you also look at contemporary realities, the fact remains that Nigerian situation is not hopeless. It's just that it cannot be business as usual. I'm glad that today we are talking about transformational development. And anything that has to do with transformation, certain things are inevitable. Number one is the fact that there must be a radical, significant, and deliberate attempt to first acknowledge I am not where I am supposed to be. And that, for me, looks like a major challenge that we have as a people. We are a people, regrettably, who will see red and want to insist that what you are seeing is not red, is green.
It's what lawyers do, they argue.
And unfortunately, even non-lawyers are also doing the same now. Because the question, first and foremost, is who is that person behind what I'm talking about? If it's my brother, is my sister, is in my religious circle, is from my tribe, is from my community. So even if that person is going down the drain, the person still wants you to know that I am getting it right, and he wants me to agree that he's getting it right. So I want to say first and foremost that Nigeria, we are not where we are supposed to be. A few days ago, I was looking at the African Infrastructure Development Index. I felt like weeping.
Before you weep, let's take the opening comments of Dr. Shubande. First of all, Dr. Shubande, let me begin by asking you, are we even aware of, well, we know what the numbers say. Inflation figures, poverty figures, unemployment figures, those are figures that we're well aware of. Do you think we're aware of the precariousness of the situation and the urgency that we need to get our development right, to transform our development, so to speak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Makinde. When we discuss development, we discuss it from a perspective that is warped, and that is a perspective that makes it look like it's an external thing. External to the sense that nobody takes responsibility for development. You can't hold anybody for development. Government is a way of abdicating responsibility. When you say government is responsible for this, it doesn't usually work that way. So we lack self-awareness, and there are no data, there are no aggregated research that measures in practical terms what developmental strides we are to make or we are not making, such that it can be relatable, that people can feel it directly. A lot of that is just in throwing numbers around, throwing jargons, throwing big words. Nigerians are tired of checking dictionary to find out what those words mean.
That's right.
These people don't have dictionaries anymore. They can Google it, but it is not relatable. Why? It is not experiential. Because when they wake up in the morning, the first thing they are looking for is they're looking for water to have their bath. There's no water. There's no light. They are waking up very early to get on the bus. On their way to getting on the bus to take them to work, they are being robbed on the road. Then they are now stuck in traffic. All of those things have a way of killing people's mental strength. It takes a sap's life out of the person, because all the person is wired to do is to think of how to survive. You cannot sell the idea of transformational development to someone whose mental index is about survival. He can't relate. He can't relate. So that survival instinct has made the average Nigerian dyslexic. We can't unlearn and we cannot relearn. So when we look at a lot of these things, look how many Nigerians understand the budget when we discuss budget every year. How many Nigerians understand the implication of our debt profile on their average life?
Okay, so perhaps just a second. You're speaking to the issues, and in order to wipe the tears of Mr. Abiodun Bamidele here, who was about to start to cry, honestly. And because the issues can get anyone really worked up. But you've spoken to the core of one of the issues, which is the fact that the figures, the rhetorics, don't speak to the reality of Nigerians. Right. You're a strategic leadership expert. We can't have development, or rather transformational development, without having a transformational leadership.
That's right.
And since you are into this strategic development or strategic leadership tangent, what should we be talking about in order for us to get our transformational development trajectory right?
First off, our prevailing mental model, which is culture, is anti-transformation.
Wow.
So that word is alien to us. Let me make a joke out of it. An average Nigerian on the street, they will think they're talking about the transformer on their streets that blows every now and then, and they have to gather money to repair the transformer. That's the only thing Nigerians can relate with in the word transformation. Why? Because in our cultural index, transformation is alien to us. We are transactional, we are not transformational.
Wow.
Our cultural index, our prevailing mental orientation is transactional. It's about reward and punishment. And if you see that, you will see it in the speech of our political rulers. And you also see it in the body language of our political rulers. Their communication is transactional. Their style of doing business is transactional. If you vote for me, I will give you road. If you vote for me, I will give you transformer. If you vote for me, I will make $1 naira. If you vote, it's transactional. So our leadership index culturally is not tilted towards transformation.
But do you blame the Nigerian, Mr. Dr. Shobande? Just a second. Do you blame the Nigerian? We know, Mr. Bamidele, let me quickly cut you. I'll come back to you, Dr. Shobande. Do you agree with him, first of all, what he said, where he said we are more of a transactional than a transformational set of people in our minds?
I was here some times ago, and I made a point, which I want to repeat and insist on, that while I agree with him that to a good degree, we are transactional people. Now, what choice is left to a person whose major drive, just like where he started from, that we have programmed people to first think about survival. So the point is, keep them in that position so that that position of impoverishment, I hope I'm...
Impoverishment.
Thank you.
You'll pay for that, don't worry. Go ahead.
Thank you. For as long as you can keep them in that state, they become a tool in your hand that you can always use to exploit.
Now, he said culturally, historically, not politically, not democratically. In other words, it's not, if I understand Dr. Shobande right, he's not saying it is something that just started in our polity or politics. It's something that had been part of us before politics came. Am I correct, Dr. Shobande? Is that what you're saying?
You are very correct.
Okay.
Very correct.
So if that is the space, that is the space, it means that we just transited from the monarchical or cultural or traditional system of government that we had, everything we had and were into this democracy.
If you look at our history of how we gained independence, the approach to it was transactional. The system of government we are very good at copying and pasting without understanding the implication in terms of our cultural context. And that's what we are doing again. We are trying to adopt a leadership style that is alien to our culture in Africa and across Sub-Saharan Africa, because I did a research work of over 7 years, and I documented it in a book titled The Leadership Myth: Why Leadership Development Principles Do Not Work in Sub-Saharan Africa. It's a 7-year research project. So I understand and I know what I'm talking about. When you look at our administration locally, in terms of how we appoint the kings, the obas, the chiefs, when you look at our history, what is transformational about this approach of selecting leaders at our local level? So we must look at our cultural fit, our orientation, then now go into our educational system. You will see that mental model there. The lecturer tells you what you should learn, and you should give him back what he has told you. Don't do any independent thinking. Just follow the curriculum. The lecturer will come and people shout, hey, Iwe, because he dictated the textbook to you that has expired since 1978. They've done 7 revisions afterwards. And the lecturer still brags in his ability to quote from page 1 to page 300. And students are meant to repeat the content of that book and they pass it down. So our factory line, the educational process, is to memorize information, not to practically impute it into their daily experiences. All the algebra and the almighty formula we learned in school, how are we using it today?
Mr. Shobande,
What we relevant to our economics?
Dr. Shobande, now that you say that this thing is inherent,
yes,
where does that leave us? We want to transit to the transformational.
That's right.
So what are we going to do about it? We cannot.
I hate to sound like a prophet of doom. We cannot transit like that. We have to deconstruct. We can't. If you try to transit, we'll be frustrated. We've been doing transition all the while, and we have had an unending transition process. We have to deconstruct, and deconstructing has to start with the prevailing mental model, and it has to begin from the very minute. I love at the beginning of the show when you were talking about the local government autonomy, and you were surprised that Lagos State, of all states, have not signed. Does that not tell you something? Does that not speak volume to the things we are discussing? The people who are in governance, people who are in rulership, they came from that mental model. It is difficult to change somebody's mental orientation when they become an adult. It's very difficult. And let me say it in Yoruba parlance. They said, "Omota oko lo ma gbe eta kota." No matter the level of infrastructural development, that is, if you fail to raise a child, that child you are faced to raise will destroy, not only destroy, it will sell the house you spend millions in building. That's what we are doing. We focus on building external structures while we have failed to build a system that is work into people's thinking. How do I know? The government spends money and construct road. They build a bridge and they tell people to cross the bridge, but the people would cross the road. They won't use the bridge. Then they will use the bridge as a market space. They'll be selling products there. What do you think is responsible? That's not government function.
Perhaps
it's a mental model.
Perhaps another way. My apologies. My apologies. We'll come. Let's really understand what the issues are. I mean, one of the ways in which the government has tried to do that, to get ahead of that, is to build dividers, on the expressway, so you don't cross.
They still tear them.
But exactly. Anyway, but just a quick one.
Yes.
We'll come. Yes. Just to quickly inform you that there is a lot going on right now in Abuja. We told you earlier that the platform has started. But if you also look at your screen right now, you'll see that there's a parade going on at Eagle Square. Right now, the president is doing that, which you can see on the screen already. And as at this moment, quite a number of guests are there. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, of course, is a special guest of honor. He's there. He has proceeded to assess the parade, and he's inspected it already. We have the President of the Senate is there. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is there. The Vice President, of course, is also there. And former President Goodluck Jonathan is also at that event that you are seeing on your screen now. Parade of Girls that you're seeing is part of the annual you know, and celebration of Nigeria's independence that you are seeing on your screen right now. Okay, so the conversation needs to continue. So that's some transformation going on there. I don't know. Let me just. So
we didn't have any parades in Lagos, did we?
Well, I don't.
Normally, it's in all state capitals.
All state capitals. Maybe that's also happening. I'm not sure. Maybe that is also happening. We don't have that information yet.
Yes. So back to our conversation. So, Mr. Bamidele, Dr. Shobande has just burst our bubble by telling us that we cannot transit.
No. He said we cannot transit like that. Mm-hmm. So some things have to happen.
Yes. So we have to be reoriented. How do we begin this reorientation of the psyche of the Nigerian?
You know, I still go back to where I started from. That before you can talk about transitioning, you must first come to a point of realization, I'm not where I should be. Mm. Immediately, we all are on the same table with that. I think that will have been a major step forward. Okay. Take, for instance, election is coming soon, all right? And like Doctor said, because of the transactional orientation that has been there over the years, somebody is already waiting. How much is somebody offering me before I decide to vote? But I don't want to agree that it's a totally hopeless situation. Before you talk about things, there are three major things that I feel should be the starting point. Our values, our belief system, then the basis of our social interaction. I was talking to someone yesterday who just left Nigeria not too long ago, a medical doctor. And I was asking him, how is work? He said, one major thing I can tell you is a major difference here is that there is no room for assumption. When somebody comes in as a patient, it doesn't matter what it is, you are required to dig the issue of that person to the basis. And immediately I said something to him. I said, the reason that is just simple. The value they place on human life in that environment is not exactly the way it is here. It is an environment where it doesn't matter what I have to lose. In fact, I hope you're not surprised that some people are ready to offer their father, they are ready to offer their mother, because our environment has been created to let them know the means is not important. It is the end result that matters. So these are things we need to start addressing. I'll give you a practical example. Not too long ago, my children, 3 of them, washed their clothes and, trying to dry it on the lines. The youngest went towards evening to pack the clothes. She only packed us and came in with it. And I was there when the mother was asking, I thought the clothes on the lines are more than this. She said, I only picked mine. That action is driven by something in the inside. So immediately I said, you will go back and pack for your brother and pack for your sister. And when it is their turn to do the same, they will also do for you. So I think that to say it is an impossible task, to say it might take us a long time, I agree. But to say it is an hopeless thing, and I want to say it begins even from the home structure. To an extent, let's get back to our homes. 5 pieces of meat in the pot. The father, the mother, 3 kids. Go and check most of the time. Maybe daddy takes 2, mommy takes 2, and the kids share the remaining. You might not have said something, but you have communicated to the children that adulthood is an opportunity to oppress.
So it's not a scam.
So that child looks forward to being a mother too, and the father
that she can do the same
so that
to her
can do the
children.
same. So it is something that is systematic, progressive, but it is possible.
Well, something that you have both said now is that at the end of the day, if we're going to have transformational development in Nigeria,
that's right,
we have to have a transformed set of people.
That's right.
You have spoken to values. I have seen those values written in the Constitution. Dr. Shobande, you're essentially saying it's a long road to Uhuru, but we need to begin somewhere.
Mr. Bamidele needs to copyright meet example.
Sorry?
And I agree with you totally. Mr. Bamidele needs to pay me copyright for the example he just gave about the meat. And I agree with him totally. I'll send you my invoice for the copyright.
Well, you will know that I've not seen the book at all because you are not even Nigeria.
I am so proud of you as a parent for what you have done for that little child of yours. You have modeled leadership. That child will never forget that lesson you taught that child, whether it's a boy or a girl. You have taught that child the problem we are trying to solve in governance today. Selfishness.
Yeah.
I grew up with an example like that, where one day my brother came home and packed rice, packed food, and my mom looked at him and said, only you will eat that rice? You didn't think of your brothers, you didn't think of your sisters, your dad has not eaten, I have not eaten, and you just came and packed everything. My mom used to say something when we were young. Don't think of yourself alone. Be considerate of others. It was a value system we were raised with, myself and my siblings. When we think, we don't think of ourselves. We think of the implication of our actions on our siblings. And as a parent, I do that for my children. If I'm spending money to buy a new suit, I'm asking myself, this suit is...
Oh dear.
I think it's
that approach is what we are seeing in our budgetary system in governance.
But Dr. Shobande, there are a good number of people who are raised by parents the way your parent raised you. I mean, you are not, too old or too young to be given birth to by 50, 60, 70-year-olds.
You are correct.
So no, I'm coming. Just a second. So the caliber of people, exactly. So the caliber of people in government today were raised by parents who were raised, like yours,
Yeah.
who also were supposed to have would have exemplified character, values, one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's about the same. The only thing that we have. So how did those values transit from the time they were being raised to the time they got into governance?
Thank you for that question. I was going to tell Mr. Abamdele earlier that my message today is not about hopelessness. My message today is to stir us to think and to collectively align in terms of the solutions we want to profile. It's not to just suggest hopelessness. If you look at the history of our economic decadence, the decline, every human being is subject to a diminishing orientation, diminishing return based on the environment they are operating in. An environment has a way of conditioning people. So somebody may have been raised right in a very good home, and the person finds himself in an environment. If he allows the environment to influence his action, influence his attitude, influence his lifestyle, the person will cave in. It's called peer pressure at a certain age bracket. So you will observe that the decadence started happening when the economy started going down. People's needs, in terms of the hierarchy of needs by Maslow, psychological safety, sense of significance, all of those things, they began to go in the time that all they are now thinking of is survival. Such that in those days, if I came home with a pencil that does not belong to me, which had happened to me at 18, I cannot forget the beating that I got. But people take those values now and go into that same peer pressure of parents telling their children, when are you going to get married? When are you going to buy a car? When are you going to... The parents are not even the ones putting the children under pressure. Why? Because they are comparing their family with another family that is seemingly doing well. The environmental conditioning is one of the reasons why those values are being erased.
Okay, Dr. Shobande, we have enough time to think about solutions that can really take us further, both of you gentlemen. Now, let's start from this one. How do we begin to transit both from governance to the homes or from the homes to to governance? I think it was not too long ago, maybe about 2-3 weeks back, the governor of Edo State, Governor Obaseki, you remember what he decided to do? Said, if your child is not in school, we're going to prosecute you.
That's right.
Now, I don't know how that would happen, but do you see a situation or a time or a space where government will begin to call out poor values or poor value orientation that is displayed by citizens or indigents?
It has to be reflected in the manifestos of our political parties who want to claim governance and who want to rule us. A governor can say that, but that will not hold waters because it's contravening constitutional provision that says government is not responsible for you to be educated. It's part of the constitution. Government cannot be sued to court for failing to take care of your welfare. So, if the governor should prosecute a parent, the parent can also take the governor to court over the fact that it is not justiciable. So, that means we can say the governor is also contravening constitutional provisions because that is one leg of the constitution that is giving us headache to date.
But Dr. Shobane,
to make those changes, we had to infuse it into the manifesto, those values.
No. Dr. Shobane, while you are right, just a second, while you are right, I think, just a second, Dr. Shobane, you wanted to...
Yes, the Constitution also states that children between the ages of so and so must be in school.
Yes,
that same Constitution says that.
I agree. I know, I'm aware of that. I'm not saying that in this country we like speaking with both sides of the mouth. And executives we have will not solve our problems.
But that's not to say, just a second, on that same issue, just a second, Dr. Shobane, we'll get on that same issue of education that you mentioned. The Constitution says that government is responsible not just for the ages, that the government is responsible for educating people, making sure that social classes of people are educated. Government provides that infrastructure. So in a situation where government has made it so happened that, okay, this school is open, is free, you don't have to pay school fees, free education and all of that, and the parents still say the children do not go to school, what happens at that time?
Then the governor can go ahead, if he's constitutionally backed by law, to prosecute, he can prosecute.
Okay,
but that parent will think of food first and think of paying his house rent, paying his health bill.
Understandable. Well,
survival.
An economic factor for the parent. The child is hawking food, hawking products that will bring in money for the family to survive. You have to factor that in.
Okay.
So the factors are beyond the statements we make on TV or those outlandish fiats that makes you look good as a person. It is not systemized, it is not in our structure, neither is it in our orientation. You know, we came a long way where the boy child will go to school and the girl child will be at home to help the mother and hawk and learn trade. But things have changed over the years. We give God praise for that we are working towards that. But you'll be surprised that some people still have some very funny thinking pattern about educating their children.
Sad so.
Okay.
Mr. Bamidele, okay, sorry.
Mr. Bamidele.
Yes, please.
Where we started from is, who are we looking for? That's where my partner started this segment from. The time has come when we have all manner of people marketing themselves and their ideas to us. And we, poor citizens, are just sitting down there looking. Many of us don't even know that we have the power, that we are the employers
of these people.
And these people will work at our behest. They are there because we put them there. So we have in our hands the power to actually take them out should they not do that which we consider to be of benefit to us. So 2023 is around the corner. Who are we looking for?
I'll answer that question very simply. While I was getting ready for today's I was just trying to do, some research, and then I stumbled on an article written by one Asue. I may not be pronouncing it correctly. Asue.
Asue Ighodalo.
And he was talking about national transformational development in Nigeria, very specifically. And it was such a good read. And I tried to marry that with what Jim Collins proposed from a research of 15 years in his book, Good to Great. Transformational development, just like you started, I agree with you 100% and 1%. You can't talk about transformational development without a transformational leader. Now, the question now is, what are the qualities of this individual that we can call a transformational leader? Now, he called it the level 5 leader. And a couple of things are critical. Number one, this individual must have a humble disposition, knowing that I am coming to serve, I'm not coming as a lord. And
tall order.
Tall order indeed.
Carry on.
Tall order indeed.
Going by the culture that Dr.
By the culture that he spoke about.
Okay.
So that is why I agree with him to a good extent that it's a long journey, but it must start from somewhere. Who is that person who is thinking first and foremost about the people and the nation? So you want to talk about what is the love quotient of that individual. Then you want to talk about that individual who is though humble and simple, but bold enough to make unpopular decisions.
Firm.
And is firm to see it through. We are not talking about big talk now. The capacity to say this is where we're going and follow through.
And risk strikes.
Sorry?
And risk strikes.
You see, at the end of the day, one thing I have discovered from my study and observation over the years is this. Immediately people come to a realization that you are truly and genuinely taking them on a journey somewhere that they can see, they will be ready to follow.
They will follow.
So that individual must be someone who is ready to give credit to people working with him to say, guys, you have got this right. And at the same time, is ready to take blame when things go wrong, to say, I am wrong. You will notice that these few things I have mentioned, we can go on and on, they are not things that we are familiar with. They are not our way of life. However, if we must go the way of transformational development, unfortunately, there's no alternative.
Okay.
So, but let me say this before however, I don't want us to close this discussion believing that the leader we are talking about is that somebody out there. It begins from me, it begins from you. That little space where I exercise a little dimension of authority. How do I relate with those people? As a father, as a mother, as a principal in a school, as a manager in the office. How are these things playing out? I think that is the starting point, and it's very critical.
Dr. Shobande, speaking in the same light, who are we looking for? Please factor in a number of things that you said earlier. These people who want to employ the leaders in 2023, they have clear and present demands. House rent, you mentioned house rent and all those things. Yeah. Poverty is, as some politicians have said in time past, have been weaponized against them. But they have to be a transformed set of people before they can produce a transformed leader who can give us transformational development. That journey, where do we begin?
I didn't hear the last statement you made.
I said that journey, where do we begin, or how do we begin?
Mr. Bamidele had laid the foundation for how to begin. And he says we must start from the very core of the society, which is the family. And that is what I have been advocating. And because the family is the major institution that shapes people. But unfortunately, we are seeing that the science for shaping and modeling is now being taken out of the control of the family, because internet technology is now parenting people and parenting people's children, even in their absence, and infusing values and infusing orientation into them that the parents themselves are not even aware of. Why? Because they're on the road chasing bread and butter.
Survival.
Number two, let's look at our religious institutions. How many of our religious institutions have transformational leaders leading them? How many of our religious institutions that is supposed to be a legacy institution that forms and shapes people's orientation have helped? I'm not here to sound like a hopeless person, but I'm getting us to think, because when we go for those powerful programs, church programs, at the end of those anointing services that we go for, right in the church premises at the car park, church members are fighting. They are not giving each other right of way.
Yes.
There is traffic inside the church premises. Which mindset, transformational mindset, produce those kind of religious people? Because we're very religious people, we abdicate responsibility to God. That transformation, religion can help us achieve it. How much has our religious institutions helped us to shape people's transformational orientation? How much humility are people imbibed from going to churches, from going to mosque? How much of that is reflected? The schools, look at what we are experiencing with our strike. Look at what we are experiencing with our secondary schools, with our primary schools. How much are the teachers earning? What value does a teacher have that he will give to a child that is transformational, that the child will take and grow up with? I'm looking at areas where we can point out transformation. I'm looking at institutions that can help us build this transformational orientation so that we can have an aggregate effect of it that can be national and we can change things. How many media houses, how many of our youths today are listening to this program and they are not on YouTube watching their own shows, or Instagram watching somebody doing skits? How many of our skits by comedians is promoting transformational values rather than objectifying women as sexual objects? If you look at the trend of the skits that we are producing, that people are laughing about on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, is it promoting those values? How many of our musicians, our entertainers, who are supposed to be legacy people, models for transformation, are singing songs that edifies people's orientation towards national transformation, towards producing the kind of leaders, the kind of songs that emphasize on societal values that are important? But today, the quality of music is promoting drugs, promoting money, promoting all sorts of things. The people will come up and say, hustle, work, and yet the same person is a kidnapper. Look at those institutional frameworks that we have. That is where the transformation can be long-lasting and it can be effective.
Dr. Shobande,
if we don't move into those systems or those institutions, all we'll be doing is to speak English, throwing cheap above people's head without effects.
Well, Dr. Shobande, it seems like all the questions you have asked today, you will write them down. You will give it to all Nigerians to answer the questions themselves, and then we will manage them.
Transformation start. People love God. People worship God, and yet they treat their neighbors badly.
It's a great place.
And yet they are serving God, praising God, and you want them to be transformational in their orientation.
Dr. Shobande, it's a great place. I can imagine how. I mean, it must be really frustrating for you having studied all of this leadership stuff, and then to see that all these things.
Jargons. I have those jargons in my family.
No. The ones that you have thrown, the ones that you have thrown today is enough. We have to thank you very much. Dr. Toye Shobande is an international author and strategic leadership expert. We thank you for being a part of this conversation, particularly because it's about 3-4 a.m. where you are now, and you stayed up just to be a part of this conversation. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate that. As well as Mr. Abiodun Bamidele, who is a development expert. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Program.
Thank you.
Well, we are going to go straight to Abuja now. We talked about what's happening at the Eagle Square at this moment. We'll take you there for a few minutes, just so you also be a part of it. Technology has given us the privilege of being at the place where we are not and where we are at the same time. So let's go to Abuja and see a little bit of the parade going on. That's it right there.
Opportunity to attend is advanced drill course in Sandos. Later introduced the sticking in slow time in the Nigerian Army in the year 2012. Warrant Officer Adamu Adams and Staff Sergeant Riba Bala in the year 2021 improved and introduced the sticking in quick time in the Nigerian Army. What we are witnessing now, the bridge squad are twirling the stick while marching. As the stick can be made to walk alongside each other at the proper pace. The stick has been improved to ensure 30 inches is achieved, as 30 inches is the normal marching pace in any parade. A stick is a long stick usually carried by warrant officer and non-commissioned officers, drill instructors in the Nigerian Armed Forces as a symbol of authority. The stick can be opened so that the tip separates at fixed distance corresponding to various lengths of marching pace, such as quick march, slow march, etc. Holding their stick now with their left arm, paying compliments to the special guest of honor. When the stick is open to the correct pace length, the stick can be held alongside the other's body by the inch, with one leg of the stick vertical to the ground and the other leg pointing forward. While marching on parade, it is normally carried stuck tightly under the left arm and parallel to the ground, with the left hand grasping the stick near the top. A stick usually consists of two pieces of wood, each at the top, a tampering towards the bottom, very similar to large wooden drafting compasses used on a school blackboard. They are usually sharp and fitted with highly polished brass. We can see the synchronization of steps, body movements alongside the stick, showing professionalism and capability of the drill squad. Dexterity in stick handling shows the discipline and intelligence exhibited by the drill squad. Now what you are witnessing, they are about to close the stick in order for them to march in quick time. They are closing the stick with the help of the stick gauge. As the stick parts include the stick edge, the stick front leg, stick rear leg, stick shoe, and stick gauge. Marking time, preparation to march in quick time. As stick can only be made to walk only during slow time. And see the position of holding the stick while marking time, transferring the stick in synchronization to the right arm, turning about. Beautiful, excellent good foot drill, emphasize the endurance and adaptability of troops in every circumstance they find themselves. Now they transfer the stick to their left armpit, paying compliment to their right hand, swinging the stick, digging their leg. This is a beautiful performance by Gas Brigade stick drill squad. It will interest you to know that the excellent performance by the stick drill squad you are witnessing at the moment are instilled by the very disciplined and highly capable regimental Gas Brigade drill instructors under the guidance of the Gas Brigade regimental sergeant majors. Master Warrant Officer Ali Umar. A resounding of applause for the drill squad as they march out from this arena. At this moment, please permit me to switch the microphone back to Major Palabara retired to continue with the commentary. Major Abara, sir.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Lokodano. Your Excellency, the very special guest of honor. All protocols duly observed. Next will be the entertainment by the Nigerian military school boys. Before the March on Parade, we take a brief look at the historical evolution of the NMS. Now, the Nigerian military school was established on 20 May 1954 with an initial intake of 30 boys known as the First Platoon. At inception, the school was named Boys Company of Nigeria, and the First Platoon was divided into 4 houses, namely Exham, English, Fairbanks, and Senior Tune. However, its history can be traced to 1951 when the idea of establishing Boys Company along the same pattern of the Boys Wing of British Army was conceived for each of the 4 British West African colonies, namely the Gambia, Gold Coast, Ghana, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. The aim was to inculcate and encourage family tradition in the force. Hence, the bulk of the pioneer sect were sons and wards of serving military personnel. In 1954 May, the Boys Company was established as a full-fledged training institution under the regimentation and administration of the defunct Nigerian Regimental Training Company, now Depot Nigerian Army, under the command of Captain W. Bassi, the first Nigerian commissioned military officer. 2 years later, the student population rose to 200. By 1957, the aim of the school was redefined with focus on the training of middle-cadre skilled manpower to replace the departing British colonial senior non-commissioned officers. Shortly, Your Excellency, Mr. President, the commander of the NMS boys will march towards the selecting days to seek the permission of Mr. President to carry out the skill. We can see him there, painstaking, measurably. And there, God salutes. He is NMS 19 of the 8779 Boilers for Banana Napascal. Presidential permission stopped there and symbolic granted presidentially. Thank you. Thank you. Now proceed to commence their display. Now coming for Anglos to defend the north, the south, the east, and the west of our beautiful Nigeria. Presenting after changing arms, the dexterity with which they get the performance shows the concentration and the discipline of mind. Recover arms there. Now, from all our defense. Potentials. Now coming back to their initial entrance. Shortly, they are splitting in and out to spin the extra rifle, that is the fabric national rifle. We can say that. The dexterity, the concentration, the discipline, based on very, very solid training. And next, they are turning left and right to reverse arms. Again, they're splitting in and out to spin the Devt rifle, that is fabric national. We can see the concentration there. We must commend the drill instructors, the RSM, the drill instructor Corporal Umar Mohammed. Now coming back to the initial exams. Coming back to the initial class, to steady rifle from right to left, left to right, and vice versa. We can see that there. Splendidly done. Potential generals, potential senior advocates, potential professors, potential doctors. It is providentially done, and we can see. It is instructive to note, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the parade commander for this Republic location, Lieutenant Colonel S.Y. Hazard, is an ex-boy. The doubles are the commanding officer 7 President Guard Battalion. He is an ex-boy, an alumnus of this great institution. Your Excellency, what we are witnessing this moment is the acronym of the great schools, NMS. To the left of the presidential days, N, then the center M, and next is S. Please, there is something on the applause, please. Thank you. NMS, acronym Nigerian Military Schools, based in Zaria, Kaduna State. After forming the acronym of the great schools, now they're back to their initial exams and then going to witness some other symbols shortly. Now preparing to give us another very unique symbol. 1st October, 1 that is for first, and OCT for October. the day we are celebrating today, 62nd Independence Anniversary, 1st October 1960, our great nation got extricated from the apron strings of the colonial masters. Today, Nigeria is on its own, very, 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 very symbolic. There we have to the left, we're going to have first, next to it the letter O, and next to it the letter C, and the next is letter T. Please put your hands together. 1st October has been, the acronym is right there. 1st October. 1 for first, OCT for October. Thank you. Great dream. We must also commend the RSM of these great children. He is one of Sir Danjuma Mohammed. They will be forming back their atriums.
But what you are seeing right there is most certainly very, very cheering, isn't it? Very, 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 very cheering, you know, altogether. And to think that these are soldiers in Nigeria, young trainees, most certainly heartwarming. Talking about hope. Well, there is hope right there.
Right there.
On your face.
You're
and
right.
That's something happening right now, live, you know, at the Eagle Square in Abuja. We can only hope and pray. And the more of this we see, the more hopes we're going to get. I'd love to see, you know, better views to really appreciate the artistry of what those children are doing, but that's not the call of any TV station. It has to be something orchestrated by maybe the authorities themselves and all of that. But that's that, and I guess we can only continue to hope and pray for this great nation, Nigeria, at 62.
Nice.
Yes, the sun rose on Nigeria in 1960. So
yes, it did. It did. And it is still rising, if you ask me, because we have not got to the peak yet.
It's not.
We're still on the way, not by a long stretch. Not by a long stretch.
Even though there's been a lot of stress in the way.
Well, what a way to introduce the topic. Oh, we're going to be looking at stress and stressors. That's our lifestyle segment for today. In our lifestyle segment today, stressful experiences are a normal part of life. There's no way you can avoid stress altogether. And the stress response is a survival mechanism that primes us to respond to threats. Some stress is positive.
Good stress.
Like you said at the beginning of the program. Well, we have somebody here who's going to explain all that to us. Imagine standing in front of a crowd to give a speech and something happens to you. Wow. When a stressor is negative and can't be fought off or avoided, such as layoffs at work or a loved one's medical crisis, or when the experience of stress becomes chronic, our biological responses to stress can impair our physical and mental health. Well, all that, as Dr. Shobande said earlier, is turenchi. But somebody is going to decrypt all of that for us this morning, and that person is Dr. Chris Aboje, consultant clinical psychologist. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
And happy Independence Day.
Same to you.
You're just not wearing green like we are. Please, I'm wearing green.
I don't
Before
have to...
some people start, it's green.
Is this green?
Okay.
Various shades of green.
Yes, like pounded yam white.
And Momo brown.
Momo brown.
Well, first of all, help me. My apologies.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, ladies first.
What is good stress?
You're stressing me.
Good stress.
Okay, I think that the way to look at it is actually to look at what stress really is. You know, I know that many times when people think about stress, they think about stress from a negative perspective. But in reality, stress wasn't intended to be negative, right?
No.
Stress is actually a normal response, and the word there is normal. It's a normal response to perceived threats. You mentioned something earlier, which is that it's a response that helps us survive. It's for survival, right? So when you find yourself being exposed to pressure or threats, your body immediately steps in to help you cope, and that response is what we call stress. Now, when it's when that response is not managed effectively that it can then lead to the negative aspect of stress. So when we talk about the positive stress, we're talking about that initial, of course, response that is, you know, we call it eustress. That's what it's called, eustress, right?
EU stress.
EU stress, that's eustress, right? So it's a positive kind of stress. And what makes it positive is that even though the individual perceives the situation as challenging, they don't perceive it as threatening.
Okay.
Or threatening enough. So the key word there again is, how do you perceive it? Now, when the situation is perceived as not just challenging, but threatening as well, then what that does is that it either increases the length of which the body has to secrete the stress chemicals, again, which were intended to be good and help you cope, but then the body is not designed to accommodate them for a long time, and then they begin to hurt the individual, and that becomes negative stress.
I think you need to take that a little further.
Okay.
So, stress.
Yes, it's the positive kind of stress.
The positive kind of stress.
Yes.
Exactly what does it do? It motivates you.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it creates motivation, you know, it improves concentration, even helps you with decision making, right? Because at that point, what you see is that your body metabolism is increased, right? Certain vital organs are also, the rate of performance are also improved at that particular time. You probably would notice you're thinking faster, your heart rate increases, a lot of functioning is improved at that particular time.
Okay.
You know.
So is it the same as the fight or flight response?
Well, yes, the fight and flight response is not just synonymous to stress. It's also in anxiety, for example. But what that simply just talks about is what your body does to help you deal with threat or deal with pressure. So it of course, when the body metabolism is increased, you're able to run faster if you have to run, right? You're stronger to fight if you have to fight. And maybe that's where the concept of fight and flight comes from, is that your performance is improved. And that's the positive aspect of it.
The question that she didn't allow me to ask the other time. What's the difference in a psychologist and clinical psychologist?
Okay, so the difference is that the clinical psychologist is a specialist, right? Okay. Which is different from just a psychologist. Anyone who goes study psychology can call themselves a psychologist, but you need to specialize in clinical psychology for you to become a clinical psychologist.
So you are a clinical psychologist?
Yes.
Okay, over to you, madam.
So you treat patients?
Yes.
Okay. Now you need to give me an example of good stress.
Okay.
Because I don't know how stress can be good for me. Because I am one of those, there are some people who react to stress in a way that is not very nice. And I am one of them. I get skin trouble arising from stress. And the last time I had that kind of stress, even though I could not identify what the stress factor was, that skin disease was with me for an entire year. So what is good about stress, please? Give me an example of good stress.
So let me give an example. If you get an appointment today, right? Maybe an appointment you've been looking forward to, right? That's good, right?
Yes.
But do you notice that it's also stressful?
In what way? I am happy, I'm dancing all over the place, I'm telling everybody, is that stress?
Exactly.
That's not stress. That's joy.
Well, you see, that's why I said earlier that many times when we talk about stress, we focus on the negative aspect of it. If you meet a young guy and a young lady who like each other, and they have butterflies in the stomach, that's stress as well. Right? But it's a positive kind of stress. And the reason why it's positive is because of the perception. That's the key thing there. It's the perception. How they perceive this situation is what makes it positive or not. Why? Because it's what would determine the kind of chemicals that will be secreted and how long these chemicals will be secreted.
Okay, to the script that we began with, someone gets laid off work. Is that positive or rather
that's negative stress?
No. Is that a function of perception? Because there are those who would say, okay, getting laid off is an opportunity for me to start my business, right?
Yes.
Is that the kind of response you're talking about?
Yes, that's the kind of response in terms of perception. But if you notice, that is not necessarily a positive stress at the initial point.
Okay.
Getting laid off, the initial thing could be, oh, this is not a good thing, right? So it's normal for, again, like I said earlier, stress is a normal response. It's normal for this person to, be stressed at that point. But then what do they do about it, right? So if this person reinterprets it and says, maybe there's an opportunity for me to start, a new business, or it's an opportunity for me to learn a new skill, then what they've done is that they've converted that stressful situation to something positive, right? And that would propel them, motivate them to improve their lives. But if this person perceives it as, my life is over, nothing good can come out of this, then what happens is that then further leads to the negative aspect of stress. So a bit of stress is normal, right? It's how you respond to it that makes the difference.
So when people, from your experience, which one is prevalent? The positive or the negative? And why?
That's difficult to answer because it depends on the person. Right.
Okay, the people that you have spoken with.
Okay, so the people that I've spoken with, right? Treated, right? Initially, the negative one is what many people would complain about, right? Negative stress, living in Lagos, for example, traffic,
Come on, who complains about good stress?
Right. Well, so many people complain about the negative one, but when they come to therapy, for example, when they come into the clinic, one of the things that we try to do is to teach them how to create a different perception of the situation. And this is where problem solving then comes in. So rather than just focusing on how bad the situation is, what can we do to change the situation, or in some cases, manage the situation? So in that case, you're teaching them how to change their perception. And once they're able to do that effectively, then they're changing from the negative stress to the positive stress.
And how successful do people get at that? How easy is it to change, to help people see a negative thing from a positive perspective?
Well, it's easy. I don't think the word would be easy, right? but I would say that it's effective. It's very effective. Now, we're not saying, some people believe that when you say change your perception, you're saying deny the situation, but that's not what it is. It's simply accept the situation for what it is, but then don't just stay stuck on the problem. Start thinking about how do I solve the problem? Exactly. What do I do about this, right? Okay. Accept the situation. That's the first step for me. The first step is you learning to accept what it is, but even when you do that, you want to do that rationally, because that's also key. Sometimes we perceive situations as negative or as stressful or as, but they are not really, they are not. They are just our own perception that might not be rational.
Okay, we've been talking about stress and stress and stress. What about stressors? What are life's main stressors?
Well, the list can go on and on and on, right? Anything can be a stressor to anyone. So from getting pregnant, for example, could be a stressor to someone. Having a child, like you talked about having a job, getting laid off. These are stressors, right? What we can do is that we can break them down into positive stressors and then, of course, negative ones, where we say that, maybe the positive ones here are stressors that, yes, would require some effort to cope with, but we know that in the long run, they lead to positive outcomes. But on the other hand, the negative ones might, at that point, or be as perceived as a person, might not lead to positive outcomes, right? So there might not be anything good in the sense of, but for a person who loses their job or who loses a loved one, right? But they can then learn how to cope with that situation. So stressors could include traffic, for example, staying in traffic, for example, losing a job, for example.
Like you did the last time.
Yeah, like I did the last time. Losing a job, for example, losing an investment, for example, even being served breakfast, right? The breakfast.
Yes, that breakfast.
That could be stressful as well. So the list can go on and on.
You don't know the breakfast we're talking about? Okay, sorry.
Okay, so heartbreak. That's the breakfast.
Heartbreak.
Yes.
Yes, it is breakfast.
How does it become breakfast?
No, you are not in our generation, That's what we call it.
So that's a way to describe heartbreak these days. Just as, you've been served breakfast.
Oh, well. You've been served breakfast. Can stress be treated?
Stress can be managed. I think that's a better word, right? It
not
can
treated.
not treated.
Managed.
Yes, it can be managed effectively.
Okay. How do you manage stress?
Great. Managing stress would bother around two things, right?
Okay.
Number one, if you look at the definition, we talked about perception. It's how you respond to perceived threat. So the first thing is usually identifying that perception, changing the person's perception of the situation. The second then borders around lifestyle modification, right? Problem-solving skills, for example. For let me give an instance. Having a couple who are struggling with communication, that can be stressful for them, right? It can be stressful because they don't know how to communicate well. Now, in that situation, introducing lifestyle modification simply means that you need to try to educate them on better ways to communicate. Or in some cases, it could even be conflict management. In some cases, it could be planning, problem solving. These are skills that could help people begin to manage the situations better. And if they can effectively manage the situation, the level of stress would also drop.
Now, can you give us some specifics, an example of some specifics of stress? For instance, what they would call work-related stress. How do you manage that one? Here is the scenario. This stressor is your boss. You go to the office the way you're smiling, it sounds like something you've been handling for a while. Now, you see this stressor every day. You have to report to this stressor every day, even if it's a downline. You have to deal with this individual on a daily basis. You can't say no, because if you go to the upline of your upline, it's going to return you to your upline and all of that. So how do you deal with work-related stress?
That's a tricky one, right? But I'll start by saying this. You cannot heal in the same place where you're hurt. That's first thing you need to identify.
Can you say that
That's
again?
a tough one.
Can you say that again? Say that again.
Because the example he gave,
Yes.
your boss is your stressor. So do you stop going to work?
Oh, no, I want him to say it again before you...
And I would explain that, right?
Please say it again and then explain.
Yeah, so what I said earlier is that you cannot heal in the same place where you're hurt, right? Now, what that tells you is that there is a mindset first. That the solution is not to stay stuck in this place where you're being hurt, right? Of course, you can try your best to solve the situation or to think about, analyze the situation and say, what can I do about this situation? That's the first thing to do, right? What can I do about this situation, right? Think about it. Now, if it's a situation that you don't have control over, a situation that you cannot manage, then you need to have a plan, right? What is my plan, right? So if I'm going to stay in this situation, what is my plan to manage it? What is my plan to manage it? So plan would include the duration. How long would I have to stay here? What do I do in the meantime while I'm here? Right? So
you're going to speak to that a little further because it sounds like a big issue that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
Give us a moment. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us. So, Dr. Abuja, here is where we are now. This scenario of working in a what's the word you use now? Trying to heal in the same place
where you've been hurt.
Where you are being hurt. Let's put it clearly, because you are being hurt on a daily basis. So what does this person do?
Okay, great. So the person needs to come to accept that first, that, I can heal in this place. The second thing for them is to do an analysis of the situation, right? Is there something I can do to manage the situation, right? Or is it outside of my control? If there's something you can do, then you need to think about what can I do? Because sometimes it could just be that you need to learn more skills to be able to manage the situation. Maybe learn to manage your boss better. But again, still have at the back of your mind that I can't stay here for so long because it's toxic, right? But I'm not saying leave immediately, right? Because you need to have a plan. Sometimes it's comfortable to leave immediately. Some other times it's not comfortable to leave. And so in situations where it's not comfortable, have a plan. I call that the exit plan. A couple of months or a couple of years, you're saying to yourself, I can't stay here for so long. So in the meantime, I'm going to develop this skill. I'm going to learn this. Now, what you're doing by doing that is that you're changing your focus. It's no longer about my boss. It's about my own interest. It's that I have a plan to learn certain skills.
Okay.
And that's basically it.
Okay. Let me touch on a touchy one. First of all, one of the biggest stressors I've been told over the past few weeks that I have had to listen to stuff like that are narcissists. Yes, you're smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to live with this fellow. There is no way nowhere else you can go. And this person could be your child, could be your spouse, could be your boss, could be your mom or dad, could be a relative that is very influential in the family. So, how do you live with this unavoidable, malignant stressor?
Well, thank God that you said that it's a person. It's not something growing on your skin, right? It's somebody, right? And that means that you can leave somebody. You see, one thing about some people who are narcissistic is that we think that we can win arguments against them, right? But that's an error. The goal is not for you to win. The goal is to save yourself. That's the goal. And so you need to structure that I'm not here to win any arguments. I'm not here to prove that I'm better, but rather I'm here to create boundaries enough to help me survive. Prioritize your own well-being, prioritize your survival. That's the first step that you need to do. Talk to somebody. Because sometimes you might not be able to solve all the problems yourself, so you need to talk to somebody, someone you can trust, somebody who's going to be confidential as well. And of course, will not judge you. And of course, talking to a professional might come in handy because there are certain things that you might, solutions, problem-solving skills that you might pick up by talking to somebody else, or even resources that you might come in contact with that would help you deal with the situation. But I'll say to everybody, right, that whether it's your father, mother, spouse, right, they are not growing on your skin. And if they will cost you your well-being, I don't think you should stay. Find a way to exit.
Okay, let's talk about sleep. They say that sleep cures a lot of things. Good sleep cures a lot of things, stress being one of them. How can one get better sleep?
After surviving bad traffic.
What can one do to be able to sleep better? Some say take this kind of tea, take that kind of thing, take this tablet, but you don't want to get addicted to any kind of pill so you can sleep. So what can you do so you can sleep naturally?
I think what I'll do is I'll start first from how stress affects sleep, right? So what you see is that the body is designed in such a way that when you're experiencing stress, some chemicals are secreted to help you cope, right? Adrenaline, cortisol are two of the very familiar chemicals. What these chemicals will do is that in addition to improving your body metabolism, I think the logic there is if you don't need it, right, during stress, then you shouldn't be using it. So under stress or under a threat, sleep is the last thing I should be thinking about. So your body naturally would shut down or reduce your ability to fall asleep at that point. Why? Because you need to attend to the stressor. Now, when you're out of that system, for some people, it comes natural. They're able to just go back to sleep and sleep well. For some other people, you need to recondition your mind, help your mind understand that I'm no longer experiencing this. I call that reassurance. Now, once you're able to reassure yourself, your brain would, get back to helping you get enough sleep. But in the meantime, what you can do is start with a plan, a daily plan, what they call to-do list, right? Why? You want to start with asking yourself, what do I want to do today? Now, why is that important? So that when you're going to bed, you are able to instruct your brain to shut down as well, which is saying, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. It is time to sleep. Now, we have something we call the sleep hygiene, which are the simple do's and don'ts. That means, number one, you use your bed for only sleep and intimacy, nothing else. No work, nothing else on your bed.
Sleep hygiene.
Yes, sleep hygiene, yes. Sleep intimacy. So if you're used to working on your bed, you need to stop it, right? You need to also stay away from screen time. Like some people, when they go to bed, they're playing with their phone. There are some people that are blessed with sleep that even if you take them to the market square, they will still sleep,
trust
right? While there are some that will struggle with that. So if you're one of the people that will struggle with that, then keep the phones away.
I think we need to have a completely different conversation on sleep.
Yeah.
Because I hear all kinds of things. There are those of us who are what they call photophobic. Any small light, no sleep.
Yes.
Whatsoever. And if you sleep under light, you have a headache. But we'll have to have that conversation at that time. We've been speaking with who?
Dr. Chris Aboje, consultant clinical psychologist, thank you very much for coming, but we'll have to bring you back to complete that thing, because sleep is very important to the human being.
Yes.
That is when our body revitalizes. So we need to sleep good.
Let me say that sleep is not a waste of time, right? And it's not a sign that you'll be poor, because I hear people say, oh, if you sleep 8 hours a day, you're wasting your life. That is not true.
That's motivational speaking.
Thank you very much for coming.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sunrise will be right back with the home stretch in just a moment. Please don't go away. Happy Independence Day.
Independence Day, man.
Please sit down.
Thank you.
There is a question Alero asked you earlier. Where have you been?
I've been everywhere.
You haven't been here in several years.
Yeah.
We haven't seen you in several years.
You didn't call me, so you called me, and that's why I came.
I do apologize.
Thank you.
Welcome. It's good to see you again.
Pastor Kunle Ajayi, popularly known as PK.
No, the last time he was here, he was just Kunle Ajayi.
Oh, yeah.
Is Pastor Enoch Adeboye's music minstrel in the Redeemed Christian Church of God. He was born in Mushin, Lagos. Attended Mushin Town Council.
Where the last building collapsed in Lagos?
I don't know about that.
No,
please don't.
I live in Iduro.
So he's a saxophonist, televangelist, and songwriter. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you so much.
Happy Independence to you as well.
Same to
we
you,
needed to
thank
bring you on Independence Day. It's a good thing that you're even wearing green like all of us.
Wow.
Someone has to, please, I am wearing green.
Yeah.
In case you don't know, what did you call it again?
Various shades of green.
You say it's sea
Sea
green.
green.
Sea green. I thought it was
What's mine? Leaf. This is leaf green.
It's green. Period. Thank you.
Onion purple.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we have heard you say is that you were influenced into music by Fela.
Yeah.
How?
Well, I'm very young. You know, I live in that area, Axis. I live in Idioro. Kalakuta Republic was in Moshlashi,
yes.
And I live in Idioro. And I used to walk down there, and I used to see him blow the horns. He comes out with his pants and he plays. He does a very handsome guy.
You learned just the sax part. You didn't learn.
No, I didn't learn that part. But when I was very young, and I said, "Go can him. I want to blow like him." So actually, it was the one that influences me. When I saw the way he uses his free and the way he played, Fela Anikulapo was a great instrumentalist, and he has what we call his orchestration is very high. Because when I studied music, I found out his works is a genius.
Masterpieces.
Yeah.
Okay, now, first of all, let me say ahead. It's Independence Day, and we've had to undulate between Abuja and Lagos and a number of other things that we've had to do. So we're not going to have enough time today, but we're going to have you back.
Thank you. I'll be back.
You're going to come?
Yeah, I'm going to come.
Since you have accused us of not calling you.
Yes.
First, to the industry. It's been a long way away from where we were in the 90s in Nigeria musically, especially gospel music. Back in time, I would remember, I think in the 80s, some people wouldn't even imagine Fuji music, for instance, being played in the church.
Yeah.
In fact, it was the devil's music at the time. and perhaps for other genres of music all across the country. But we're way away from that era now. What's your take on the progression, especially of gospel music in the country?
You talk about 80s, early 80s, and because of the knowledge has increased. And you could see that the time has changed. Yeah, before they used the accordion, they used all that kind of things. They said those are the kind of instruments they can use in church. Even the first time when you mentioned Fuji music, the first time Daddy asked me to bring Dekunle Fuji to camp, some people refused him. And I said, why do you bring someone? And when we brought down when Daddy came up, that music belongs to God, which is true. You see, God created music. He's the originator of music. So he's supposed to use it for God himself. So people started changing. But my take now is that we have come to a time that we need to move with the time. And actually, it's not moving with the time. Studying hard and to know exactly what is this century, the type of music for the century that can attract this generation. You know, you can't just come and start playing the older generation's music and you think the younger one will flow with it. So my take is that we have come a long way and we are improving and we are getting better. And you can see all the new artists, Tim Godfrey, all of them, and you can see the kind of music they play.
Pastor, you actually studied music.
Yes.
But there are a lot of musicians who music comes to them naturally. They didn't have to study it, and yet they are able to play good music. You went into music with Fela as your influence, which means that even before you went to study music, you knew music.
Yes, I've been playing music before I went to study music.
Yes.
Playing music.
So what do you think of those who didn't study music at all and yet are able to make good music?
There's nothing bad about that. So many people that are composing those hymns, they're actually musicians. They're not the one that they didn't study music. I have a lot of people. We have
seen lawyers, we have seen engineers.
Yes, they play music. Music can be also a talent and an inborn. A talent, a gift from God. For example, I've been playing music before I went to school of music. Because after I started playing that day, I was advised to go and study music. My principal told me you can study music. My daddy Gio told me that go and study music. And it was then I went there. It was very difficult for me because I knew some things, but when I got into the school of music, I need to drop those things because I was told they were wrong.
And relearn.
Yeah, relearn. So there's nothing wrong in it. And that aspect is also called musicianship. Ability to perform, ability to hear and play, ability to compose is part of what they call musicianship.
Okay, I just heard something else. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Musicianship.
Yeah.
So is that to say that a musician is different from an artist?
Yes.
Okay, now educate me.
For example, you can say an artist can be a performer.
Okay.
A musician.
Like Dibanj always says that he's a performer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Artist can be a performer and it may not be a musician. Because when you say someone is a musician, someone who knows the bit of music and all that, you can also be a musician and not be able to perform. You can even study the history of music. You can even specialize on theory of music. You can specialize in so many things. You can specialize in a methodology of music. You can specialize in so many things. So let me just leave it that way.
If I play the microphone, I'm a musician. What? What?
How do you play the microphone, for God's sake?
You speak into the microphone, you blow it.
Those of us who saying, I play the mic. No, just go ahead. This is hate speech. That's hate speech.
Pastor, let's look at the music industry in Nigeria generally. Our music has come a long way and has gone places.
Yes.
What do you think about the fact that our music is now more or less mainstream everywhere in the world? You're in Paris, you're listening to Nigerian music. You're in an airport in America, they're playing Nigerian music. How does that make you feel?
I feel so great whenever I hear our music outside there. And it's highly encouraging. And I think we should do more. And another aspect I would like we, the musicians or artists, should work on is how to pull them down so that generation unborn, without listening to the music, can be performed. For example, so that we'll be able to write down our talking drums.
Well, that's one of the reasons
we can write down our bata. It happens. When I was in Germany, I wanted the Germans to play African music. They don't understand tonic suffer.
Because they can't read the music tones.
They need to read the tone. They need to play it.
And so the music is not written.
It's not written. So I have to be writing manually. And they enjoyed it.
Okay.
The rhythmic pattern.
I said it earlier that you have to come back. Just when the conversation is starting, we have to wind down now because we have to go take the news at the top of the hour. Pastor Kunle Ajayi, saxophonist, televangelist, songwriter, and countless other things. We have to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, man.
Again, this is just the beginning. And you're still going to play that national anthem before we close. And just to say, thank you very much for being a part of our day and allowing us to be a part of yours today. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. My name is Ayo Makinde.
My name is Alero Edu. See you next week with a fresh edition.